Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, American Airlines, Derek Kerr, in discussion with Skift Senior Aviation Business Editor, Brian Summers.
Good afternoon, everyone. Derek,
How you doing,
thank
Brian?
you for joining me. Just want to let everybody know we're still going to take questions on Slido late in the session, so please go on there and ask some questions. All right, you're the CFO of American Airlines. CFOs usually talk in acronyms.
Yep.
There's a couple of them in airlines, RASM and CASM.
Yep.
Not going to explain what they are, and I'm going to beg you not to use any acronyms during this discussion.
I'll take that challenge. I'll see if I can pull it off.
All right, so I want to give you a chance later to brag about some of the improvements that American has been making in the passenger experience.
Yep.
But first, we have to talk about some of the harder stuff.
Okay.
This has been a really tough summer for American Airlines operationally. You've had troubles with labor. You sued your pilots union.
Yep.
What is going on, and how are you going to fix this?
Yeah, no, it was a tough summer for us. I mean, we went into 2019 as one of our goals is to run the best operation we've ever run in the history of our airline, and we set up to do that. We've had two things that have really been issues for us for the summer. One is the MAX aircraft and losing those. We had 24 of those aircraft that were in our schedule when they got put down. We had another 16 coming, so you can imagine by this time at the end of the year, we would have had 40 aircraft that we had to figure out what to do with. And there's not a lot of replacements you can go out and get for those aircraft, so we had to work with the schedule to make sure that we took care of our passengers when those aircraft came out. The second thing, as you referred to, is the IAM TWU mechanics and ramp. We're in negotiations with them. We have been in negotiations for a while. It's the last contract we have to do as part of the merger. We've gotten deals done with every other group this similar way, and those are all complete. So this is the last one we have to do, and we have to get it done. Unfortunately, during this summer, there was an illegal work action by the TWU and IAM that slowed down our airline. Example is, for us, the key thing for us to run a good airline is to have aircraft in the morning, right? And have the aircraft come up in the morning. There's a lot of maintenance that happens overnight, but those aircraft have to come up in the morning so that we can fly the schedule that we have. On normal times, we would have 35 aircraft out in the morning, and you have spare aircraft that you manage throughout the schedule. And we were upwards of 60 aircraft. And that really ripples through the whole day and ripples through, and then when you have weather on top, which we've had in this country, the summer was really rough from a weather standpoint, it just causes issues as you go forward. So what we need to do is get that deal done, So I think our team did a tremendous job of doing what we did and running an airline through the summer with those two impacts. But what we're doing is we're focusing on next year. We're focusing on the fact that we have to double down and run a good operation and make sure that's what we do, and we focus on that for next year. We know that what we put in place was working, and the reason we know that is part of our operation that we run that wasn't being affected by the IAM and the TWU was the regional fleet. We ran the best regional operation we've ever run in the history of the airline, and we continue to do so because the steps that we put in place to run a good operation for this year were in place for that airline. So that has been put in place. We're confident that once we get the deal done and get the MAXs back up, and not even get the MAXs back up, that's just lower capacity, right? So we need to get those back up just to fly the capacity. But once we get the mechanic deal done, that we can run a good operation. We're negotiating with them now. The NMB is part of the negotiations. We're back talking, which I think is a tremendous thing. You can't get a deal done unless you're talking, right? So for us, we were off for a long period of time during the summer. So we're really happy that we're back to the table. We really want to get a deal done. It's a priority for us, by the year end to get that done, if not sooner. And we're really focused on that right now. But we've got to double down and run the operation much better next year and make sure that, we do what we said we would do in 19 and 20, because nothing else matters if you're not running a good operation. And It's the best thing for our people. It's the best thing for our customers. It's the best thing we can do is to run a good operation.
All right, so you can't run an airline without mechanics. You can't run an airline without pilots. I'm sure there's a lot of your customers out there that just say, just get the deal done. We don't like going to the airport and wondering if our flight is going to be delayed at the last second by a mechanical issue. Just pay these people, get it out of the way. Is that just not something you feel like you can do?
Well, you have to be competitive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, no, from a financial perspective, we have to be competitive with the rest of the industry, right? I think from a cost perspective in our industry, we're all going to be about in the same boat, right? From a labor perspective, from a fuel perspective, most of our costs are all going to be the same. And if we're not competitive from that perspective, we have an industry-leading contract on the table, and it's been on the table for a year. So it's not that we're not wanting to pay up for it and not wanting to do that, but you have to maintain some semblance of cost control at the airline as we go forward. And that's what we're doing as we negotiate. So there's a table position from both sides, and we're negotiating that, and the NMB's helping us do that. But, it's not, in labor negotiations, it's not just, get it done at all costs. There is a cost that you'll get it done at, but it's not get it done at all costs. Otherwise, you're uncompetitive with the rest of the industry.
But is there a long-term concern for the airline? I was at a conference a couple weeks ago, and one of your colleagues who handles customer experience said that American has gotten to the point where you are calling your best customers to say, we're sorry, we're going to make this right. I mean, how long can you keep doing something like that?
Not for long. I agree with that. But it is, we owe that to our customers. We did not produce what we said we would produce, from an ASM perspective, from, a cancellation perspective. So when those instances do happen, we need to do that. We need to talk to our customers and tell them that we're sorry, and do what we need to do. They do understand the MAX issue. There's nothing we can do about that MAX issue, but the mechanic issue is real, and we will get that done. We haven't had any issue from a corporate perspective. We need to watch that, but our corporate team is all over that and working with them. But I don't think there's a long-term sustainable issue because it's going to happen. We're going to get it done. We're going to get a mechanic deal done, and the MAXs are going to go back in the air. So I think eventually everything will be where it needs to be.
All right. Before we were all talking about the labor issue, we were talking about something at American Airlines, and this was going viral, something called Project Oasis, which is kind of an absurd name. But this
I don't know where it comes from.
Okay, this is American's plan to add seats to some aircraft. So you had these Boeing 737-800s. When you acquired American Airlines, they had 150 seats on them. I think then you added 10 more seats, and now you're up to 172. So on this airplane, from 150 to 172, and people say, wait a minute, I get no legroom. This airline doesn't like me. You say you have to do this, right?
Well, I look at it as a different thing. It is a fleet harmonization is what we're doing, okay? So when you merge two airlines, there's a lot of things in integration that you have to do to make them the same. Two res systems, I got to put them together. Two, maintenance system, I have to put them together. It's the same thing on the fleet, okay? So what we did on the fleet is we had common fleet types, okay? So the U.S. planes had A321s and American had A321s, but they are completely different interiors and completely different configurations inside. A321s didn't even have power plugs, didn't have anything in them, right? On the U.S. side, AA side had them. The seat numbering system is different. So in an American plane, I don't know if you know this, but the pilot is seat number 1, the flight attendant is seat number 2, and the first row for our customers is seat number 3. Okay, so when you get onto an American plane, it's number 3. And when you get onto a U.S. plane, it's number 1, right? So think about in the airline industry when you have to swap aircraft and change out aircraft. If I switch out a 321 on an AA plane for a U.S. plane, it's a totally different plane. And the rows are different and everything. So it is in my view, it's a harmonization project where we have got to have The 737 is exactly the same. We have to have the A321s and the 321s exactly the same so that the operations, number one, can run it better. So when we do have disruption, which you end up having, that we can swap and get that done. From a customer perspective, it's better so that if I get on that plane and I swap to another plane, I get my seat, right? Sometimes what happens is I don't get my seat, I get another seat, but you don't realize that that's because it's a different configuration and I'm going to put you in a different spot, and I'm trying to get you on the plane and do the right thing, but I didn't get you the same spot.
Right.
In the new world, or it's going to take us a little time to get there, you'll get the same seat.
All right.
So to me, this is a harmonization, make sure we get there. Plus, we're able to then put the larger bins on the aircraft. We're able to put Wi-Fi on all the aircraft. We're able to put power ports on all the aircraft and all those kind of things that will enhance the customer experience.
You also get to sell 22 more seats in the same amount of square footage, right?
Oh, yeah. But there's two things to that. I will say the 150 seat,
Yeah.
right, to 160, those seats were on the plane. They were put down as middle seats in the middle of the plane. And the reason they were put down from 150 to 160 was because if I add those 10 extra seats, I have to add a flight attendant. Because every 50 seats, you add a flight attendant, right? So what was thought to be a cost effort was to take those off so I take a flight attendant off the aircraft, right? So those were just flipping the seats up. They were already on the plane. That's no different. Now, going from 160 to 172 was the MAXs are coming with 172, okay? So there's a new configuration on the MAX aircraft, and those have 172 on it. So there's a new configuration, new seats. You have slimline seats and things like that. So the 737-800 and the MAX would have had a different interior. So what we're trying to do is take the harmonization of the 737-800 fleet and the MAX fleet and put them all at 172. So those are swappable aircraft, and it's much better for our customers and for our employees.
Okay. All right, so you've talked a lot about the complexity of American Airlines.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, but before you at US Airways acquired American, you were the CFO at US Airways, and people may or may not know this, but the management team at US Airways had a great reputation. You had taken just an absolutely broken airline and turned it into something very impressive. And then you were going to set your sights on American, and you're in the midst of a turnaround now. Has it all been a little bit more complicated than you thought? When you showed up at Dallas-Fort Worth, were you like, whoa, what have they been doing?
Yes. Yes.
So what specifics?
No, I think, the plan is still the same plan. I mean, the key was the network, right? And putting the two networks together, and I think the network works as we had planned. What it is just the integration and the systems integration and how long those type of things have taken. American was in bankruptcy and hadn't been able to invest in a long period of time. And there are a lot of systems at American that have been there for a long period of time, right? And when you're trying to integrate two systems, when it's taken longer than we have, and it's probably cost us a little more than we thought, but our IT team has done a tremendous job of integrating the airline. There hasn't been one misstep in it. We cut over the res system with no issues, which we did at the US Airways America West merger. We cut that over and had our problems, right? So we learned from that one as we merged these two systems. So it's taken a little bit more time, but we're still very happy where we're at. We're very happy with the team. The team has done an incredible job of integrating these two airlines, and we wouldn't change a thing.
So I know American was coming out of bankruptcy when you acquired them, but they were still kind of a bloated legacy airline that had been around for a long time. And when you were looking at them as a CFO, was there any spending, anything that they were doing that you just found to be absurd or weird?
It was just different focus.
Yeah.
I think it was different focuses in different areas and where you want to do things. I think there was non-spending in places where they should have spent, and there was spending in places that we didn't need to spend. And so as you put the two airlines together and look at the P&Ls of the two airlines, you kind of go through that process to decide where is the focus, where do you want to spend the money, Where should we put our dollars as we go forward? And we had contemplated a fair amount of this, increase in costs as we merged the two airlines to make sure that, our team was paid where they needed to be paid. But I don't say there was, a huge chunk of money that was sitting on the American side that they were spending that they shouldn't have spent, because they had just spent 2 years in bankruptcy and were trying to, keep the cash flow going.
Okay. I'm curious if you're interested in seeing the industry going in a more premium direction. Recently, I noticed back in the U.S. Airways days, you made some interesting cost cuts. You were the only full-service airline to charge for drinks in economy class, which you did for a short time. In first class, where I prefer to sit, you were giving drinks in plastic glasses, which I think was cost-cutting.
Yeah.
And it just feels like in the last few years, the industry has gone in a bit different of a way. It's not as much of a commodity anymore. Has that surprised you?
I think it is a commodity in a way, but the differentiation is going to be those type of things. We all now have the capability to do those things, right? Whereas in the past, you did those things because of survival, right? You did those things because, you were trying to make it to the next day and not go into bankruptcy, and you're trying to save cash and do those kind of things. That's no longer the case. I think the industry is stable enough that all of us have the resources to go do those kind of things. I mean, we've invested a ton in our clubs, right? We've invested a ton with the food on the plane. We've invested, in 500 new aircraft. So I think the investment in the industry is significant, and it's going to continue because I think that's the differentiator between the airlines. It's customer service, and it's the way our people treat the passengers, and then it's the amenities that we have. So I think you're going to see those kind of things continue, an investment in those areas as we go forward. And I think I don't think it's going back to the old days where you have caviar on the planes and things like that, but it is different from, 10 years ago when we were trying to survive.
All right, so one place you have not made the investment in passenger experience is with in-seat TV screens. In fact, you have a lot of planes now that have them. You're taking them out. We heard this morning from Ed Bastian at Delta Airlines. He is Mr. Screens, 700 aircraft. Why do you guys see the situation differently? Why are you taking them off?
Well, we sat down, and we had them on the aircraft, and so the decision was, do we put them on the rest of the aircraft or do we move forward? And it was a really good debate within the company. What we decided was, we looked 5 years down the road and said, would we invest in screens on the back of the TV, or would we invest in the best Wi-Fi of anybody in the airline industry? And we decided to invest in the Wi-Fi. What we try to say is, as we sat on the plane, looked on the plane, everybody has their device. People are coming on with a device, whether it's an iPad, whether it's a laptop, whether it's a phone, anything. If we can stream to that device, have live TV, have all of the product that we need to have, that's what customers want. They want the in-home experience. They want to get on the plane and just pop open their phone and be on the Wi-Fi and be able to do what they want to do. So we felt that was a better investment for us to go that route instead of the antiquated route of putting the TV screens on the plane. So we were trying to look 5-10 years down the road, and it was a decision: do we invest in putting it on every plane, or do we invest in the Wi-Fi and make sure that our customers had what they want to stream the way they want and watch Netflix? And I mean, I watched the Cubs-Cincinnati Reds game on the way in last night. Watched the entire game on the live TV and watched the entire game. So I think people prefer that than having the TV screen in front of them.
All right, well, there's several hundred people out there that I know have this follow-up question.
All right.
When's it going to be free?
Well, the issue is not about whether you want it to be free, it's whether the plane can handle it.
Yeah.
Whether the capacity of the aircraft. When we first put Wi-Fi on aircraft, right, so we had a product on the plane, and it didn't work very well if too many people were on it, because the capacity of that aircraft just wasn't there. So, or the capacity of the Wi-Fi, when everybody was on it, it slowed down and wasn't useful. right? So what happened is you raised the prices of to use it so that less people use it. That's not what you want. You want everybody to use it. So what airlines are doing is they're testing the system to see what if every person on the plane is on Wi-Fi, right? So if we give it for free, it's got to work. If we don't give it for free and it doesn't work, it's not gonna help. So I think, you know, as the Wi-Fi, we've gone from one product to Viasat to a product that streams. That gives us the opportunity, I think, to take the next step. But I do think over time that will happen.
Is there revenue for you guys in having Wi-Fi, or is it just something that you have to keep pace with your competitors?
It's something that you end up having to have to keep pace.
So you're not making a ton of money.
You're not making money on Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is a cost, but it's something that our customers want, and it's something that, you know, eventually we will provide for our customers as we have the ability from a technology standpoint to do it.
Great. So I've learned in my years of moderating that the audience can ask much more ruthless questions than I do.
All right.
So let's see what we have here. I'll ask the second one there. With the MAX issue impacting capacity,
Yep.
What's plan B? How do you convince passengers to fly when the Boeing brand has been tarnished?
Okay, first of all, there really isn't a plan B. I mean, what we've done is we've taken capacity down and we've pulled capacity out. So we wouldn't fly as much capacity if the MAXs don't come back up. That's really what we did over the summer. We took 24 aircraft out, about 100 departures out. So that's what we did in that case. They're going to go back up. The aircraft will be up at a certain point in time. It's hard to plan into next year of what we're going to do. So we are staying close to the FAA. We're staying close to Boeing, so we understand what we do and when they go back up. But the second part of the question is a good question. I mean, I think once the whole key for us to even fly the aircraft is, one, the FAA has to stand up and say it's safe and it's going to go. And number two is for our pilots. Our pilots union has been involved in the process. They've been involved in the training. They've been involved in all of that. And they will stand up behind this aircraft when it's ready to go. Just know that no aircraft goes in the air and a pilot doesn't fly a plane unless he thinks it's safe. He or she thinks it's safe. So you have that confidence that it's there. So I think there will be some people that may not fly it right away, but I think once we get it in the air, this is going to be the safest plane out there once all of the work gets done and they get back up in the air because of all the work that's been done over the last period of time. So we'll continue to track it.
Great. All right, we're going to take one more. I find this one interesting. The first one, as the CFO in a risk-averse industry, what's your take on venture capital investments of airlines in travel tech startups like JetBlue Ventures?
I think it's a really good thing to look at. I think we have a corporate development group that anything that comes in that is of that ilk, we send to the corporate development group and they look at it. They have about 4 or 5 projects that they're looking at today. I think it's important for us to continue to look at that and work with tech startups to help over time better the industry and make sure technology-wise we continue to enhance the experience for our customers.
Great. Thank you so much, Derek. I've had a
Thank
great
you.
time.
Appreciate it. Thanks.